The carriage lurched over another rut in the road, and Clara Bennett pressed her gloved hand against the cold window, watching the countryside blur past. Derbyshire. She'd never been this far north, never imagined she would be. "Almost there, miss," the driver called back. "Let's begin. But first, subscribe and click like. Where did you find me? I love knowing who's on the other side." Clara nodded, though he couldn't see her. Her fingers traced the edge of the worn leather seat. This was it. Her new life, or what passed for life when you were 26, unmarried, poor, and utterly alone in the world. The trees began to thin, and then she saw it. Ashford Hall. Her breath caught. The mansion rose from the landscape like something from a Gothic novel, all grey stone and towering windows, surrounded by perfectly manicured grounds that seemed to stretch forever. Beautiful, cold, imposing. "Dear God," she whispered. The carriage rolled to a stop before the main entrance. A footman appeared immediately, opening her door with practiced efficiency. Clara stepped down, smoothing her modest travelling dress, suddenly aware of how plain she must look against such grandeur. "Miss Bennett?" A woman's voice, warm but formal. Clara turned to see the housekeeper approaching, Mrs. Hodges according to the letter, 50-ish, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "Yes, thank you for—" Come, you must be exhausted. "The Dowager Countess is expecting you, but she said you're to rest first." Mrs. Hodges gestured for the footman to take Clara's small trunk. "This way." As they entered the grand foyer, Clara's footsteps echoed on marble floors. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead. Portraits of stern-faced aristocrats lined the walls, their painted eyes following her progress. "It's quite something, isn't it?" Mrs. Hodges said, not unkindly. "You'll get used to it." "I'm sure I will." Clara tried to sound confident. They climbed a sweeping staircase. The second-floor corridor stretched endlessly in both directions, doors upon doors, all closed. Silent. "The family wing is to the east," Mrs. Hodges explained in a lower voice. "The Duke's rooms, the Dowager's apartments. Your room is here near her ladyship's, as you'll be her companion." She opened a door to a modest but comfortable room. Nothing like the opulence below, but clean and bright, with a window overlooking the gardens. "The Duke," Clara began, then stopped, unsure how to ask. Mrs. Hodges's expression shifted. Something sad flickered across her features. "His Grace keeps to himself," she said carefully. "Has done for 10 years now, since Lady Catherine—" She trailed off, then shook her head. "You'll learn soon enough. Best to focus on the Dowager. She's a lovely woman, truly. Lost in her own way, watching her son fade like he has." "Fade? Exists but doesn't live, if you understand me." Mrs. Hodges moved toward the door. "Rest now. I'll send someone to fetch you for dinner." After she left, Clara sat on the bed, her heart beating oddly fast. The silence of the house pressed in around her. She'd read the advertisement 3 times before responding. Companion wanted for Dowager Countess. Must be educated, refined, and discreet. The wages were generous, suspiciously so for such a position. Now she understood why. This wasn't just a house, it was a mausoleum. That evening, Clara met the Dowager Countess in her private sitting room. Lady Rothwell was in her early 60s, elegant despite her mourning clothes, with intelligent grey eyes that studied Clara with open curiosity. "You're younger than I expected," she said without preamble. "I'm 26, my lady. And unmarried." "Yes." "Why?" Clara blinked at the directness. My father was a vicar. When he died 3 years ago, there was no money, no dowry. I've been working as a governess." "You're well-spoken. Educated." "My father taught me Greek, Latin, literature, philosophy. He believed women should be thinking creatures." "Yes, good." The Dowager gestured to a chair. "Sit, child. Let's be frank with each other. I didn't hire you just for company. I hired you because this house is dying, and my son is dying with it, and I'm desperate enough to try anything." Clara's hands tightened in her lap. "I don't understand." "You will." Lady Rothwell's eyes were suddenly fierce. "My daughter-in-law, Catherine, died 10 years ago in childbirth. The baby as well. Alexander, my son, he loved her desperately. When she died, something in him broke. He performs his duties as Duke, manages the estates, attends Parliament when necessary, but he's a ghost, empty. I've tried everything. Doctors, friends, family. Nothing reaches him. And you think I can? I think you're young, alive, and you have nothing to lose by trying." The Dowager's voice softened. "I'm not asking you to seduce him or perform miracles. Just be present. Be human. Sometimes that's enough." Clara wanted to protest that it wasn't her place, that she was just a companion, that this was impossible, but the desperation in Lady Rothwell's eyes stopped her. "I'll do my best," she said quietly. "That's all I ask." The first time Clara saw the Duke, it was an accident. 3 days had passed. She'd settled into her routine with the Dowager, reading aloud, taking walks, playing cards in the evening. She'd glimpsed servants moving through the halls, heard the household machinery functioning with clockwork precision. But no Duke. Until the afternoon she took a wrong turn. The library. She'd been looking for it, had heard it was magnificent. The door stood ajar, and she pushed it open without thinking. The room was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, thousands of books, tall windows letting in golden afternoon light. And there, at a massive oak desk, sat a man. He didn't look up. Clara froze. She knew immediately who he was. The dark hair, the aristocratic profile, the absolute stillness of his posture as he stared at papers before him. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to." He didn't react, didn't turn, didn't acknowledge her presence in any way. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. She backed toward the door, then hurried out, heart pounding. It wasn't until she was halfway down the corridor that she let herself stop, pressing a hand to her chest. He'd looked so alone, not just solitary, but fundamentally isolated, as if an invisible wall separated him from the rest of the world. Exists, but doesn't live. Now she understood. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept seeing his face, or rather, the absence in his face. No expression, no life, just nothing. At midnight she gave up and put on her dressing gown, thinking to go to the kitchens for warm milk, but as she descended the stairs, she heard footsteps. She pressed back against the wall, suddenly aware she was being improper, wandering at night. But curiosity won. The Duke appeared at the end of the corridor. He wore no jacket, just shirt sleeves and waistcoat, his cravat loosened. He walked slowly, like a man in a dream, heading toward the east wing. Clara held her breath as he passed. His eyes were open but unseeing, sleepwalking or just existing. He disappeared around a corner. She found herself following, staying far enough back to remain unseen. He led her through a series of corridors to a heavy oak door. He opened it and went inside, leaving it slightly ajar. Clara crept closer, peered through the gap. A bedroom. Not his. She could tell by the feminine touches, the delicate furniture. The late Duchess's rooms. The Duke stood in the center, surrounded by dust-covered furniture and faded grandeur. Moonlight streamed through uncurtained windows. He looked around slowly, as if searching for something he'd never find. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry." His voice was raw, broken, 2 words that carried 10 years of anguish. Clara's throat tightened. She backed away carefully, her eyes burning with tears she didn't understand. The next morning, Clara made a decision. She woke early and went to the library before the Duke arrived. She opened the curtains, letting in fresh air and sunlight. On his desk, she placed a small vase with wildflowers she'd picked from the garden. Then she left. All day she wondered if he'd noticed, if he'd been angry, if she'd overstepped. That evening, the Dowager smiled at her over dinner. "The servants tell me someone opened the library this morning," she said carefully. "It hasn't been properly aired in years." Clara kept her eyes on her plate. It seemed a shame, such a beautiful room. Indeed, a pause. The flowers were a nice touch. No reprimand came. The next morning, Clara did it again. Opened windows, brought fresh flowers. This time, she also left a book of poetry on the corner of his desk. Wordsworth, innocuous and beautiful. The third morning, she arrived to find the book moved. Not returned to the shelf, but placed differently, as if someone had picked it up. Read it. Her heart beat faster. A week passed. Clara continued her quiet campaign. Small things. A cup of tea left on the desk, still steaming. Candles replaced before they burned down. Books carefully selected and placed where he might see them. She never stayed, never tried to encounter him directly, but she felt his presence in the changes. The window left open after she'd opened it. The teacup, empty. The books, moved. "He's noticing you," the Dowager said one afternoon. They were walking in the gardens, the Dowager leaning lightly on Clara's arm. Don't lie, child, I'm not blind. Lady Rothwell smiled. The servants talk. They say the library is coming alive again, that His Grace actually drank the tea you left, that he's spending more time there, not less. Clara felt her cheeks warm. I only wanted to help. I know. And you are. The Dowager squeezed her arm. Keep going, please. 2 weeks after Clara's arrival, everything changed. It was raining, a proper English downpour that turned the world grey and drumming. Clara had been reading in her room, but restlessness drove her downstairs. Without thinking, she headed for the library. She pushed open the door and stepped inside, before realizing her mistake. The Duke sat at his desk, a ledger open before him. He looked up. For the first time, his eyes actually focused on her, really saw her. Clara's breath stopped. His eyes were grey-blue, the color of storm clouds. Intelligent, haunted. I'm sorry, she said quickly, already turning. I didn't know. Wait. His voice made her freeze, deep, slightly rough from disuse. You're the one, he said slowly. The flowers, the tea. It wasn't a question. Clara turned back, her heart hammering. Yes, Your Grace, I apologize if I overstepped. Why? She searched for words. It seemed wrong. Such a beautiful room, closed up like that. He studied her for a long moment. Rain pattered against the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. You're my mother's companion, he said finally. Yes, Clara Bennett. Miss Bennett. He gestured to a chair near his desk. Sit. She shouldn't. It was improper, but something in his voice, not a command, almost a plea, made her cross the room and sit. Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable exactly, but weighted. What are you reading? He asked abruptly, nodding to the book in her hands. Clara glanced down. Byron. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. Do you like it? Parts of it. He's brilliant, but melancholy. Melancholy can be honest. Or self-indulgent, Clara said before she could stop herself. The Duke's eyebrows rose slightly. You don't approve of Byron? I think he romanticizes suffering, makes it beautiful when it's mostly just painful. Something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, but close. You're not wrong, he said quietly. More silence. Rain. The crackle of the fire someone had lit in the grate. The Wordsworth, he said. You left it. Yes. I read it, all of it. Clara's chest tightened. Did you like it? I'd forgotten, he said, his voice dropping, that words could be gentle. Everything I read now is ledgers, legal documents, estate business. I'd forgotten that language could be soft. The vulnerability in his admission made Clara's throat ache. There are thousands of books here, she said carefully, all waiting to be read again. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression shifted, opened slightly. Perhaps, he said, perhaps you're right. When Clara left the library an hour later, she was trembling. They'd talked about books, about poetry and philosophy, about small things that felt enormous. He'd spoken hesitantly at first, as if remembering how to have a conversation, but gradually his words had flowed more easily. And for just a moment, near the end, she'd seen him almost smile. The library became their meeting place, though neither of them said so aloud. Clara would arrive in the afternoons, ostensibly to select books for the Dowager. Alexander would be at his desk, ostensibly reviewing estate documents, and somehow conversation would begin. Small things at first, the weather, a passage in a book, the gardens, then deeper things, ideas, beliefs, memories that didn't hurt too much to share. My father taught me to read when I was 3, Clara said one afternoon, curled in the leather chair that had become hers. He said education was the only inheritance he could give me. Alexander looked up from his ledger. He was right. The world doesn't agree. Most people think education makes women difficult. Does it? Absolutely. Clara smiled. We ask inconvenient questions, form our own opinions, refuse to be decorative. Terrible, he said dryly. How does society survive? It was the closest he'd come to humor. Clara's heart lifted. Your father, she said carefully. Did he teach you? Alexander's expression shuttered slightly. Tutors, Eton, Cambridge, the usual aristocratic education. My father died when I was 12. I became duke at an age when I barely understood what it meant. That must have been frightening. It was. He set down his pen. I spent my entire youth learning to be someone I wasn't sure I wanted to be. Duty. Responsibility. The weight of a name that goes back 400 years. he paused. And then I met Catherine, and for the first time I thought perhaps I could be both things, the Duke and myself. Clara held her breath. He'd never spoken of his late wife before. She was kind, he continued, his voice distant. Genuinely kind, not the performative kindness of society. She saw people, really saw them. I thought... He stopped, his jaw tightening. I thought we'd have a lifetime. I'm sorry, Clara whispered. It was 10 years ago. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. His eyes met hers, sharp and searching. No, it doesn't. The next day, Clara found a note on the library desk. Just 3 words in elegant script. Thank you. A. She pressed the paper to her chest, her eyes stinging with tears she couldn't explain. The Dowager noticed everything, of course. He's coming back, she said over breakfast. Slowly but surely. The servants say he's been more present, speaking to them, asking about their families. He hasn't done that in years. I'm glad, Clara said. It's because of you. No, I haven't, child. The Dowager's hand covered hers. Don't diminish what you've done. You've given him something precious, a reason to engage with life again. Clara looked down at their joined hands. I've only been myself. Exactly. And that's what he needed. But even as happiness bloomed in her chest, Clara felt the first whisper of something dangerous, something that had no place in her heart. She was beginning to care for him, not as a charitable project, but as a man. 3 weeks after their first real conversation, Alexander asked her to walk with him. The gardens, he said, standing awkwardly in the library doorway. If you'd like, the weather is fine. Clara's heart jumped. I'd like that very much. They walked side by side through formal gardens, giving way to wilder paths. Alexander pointed out features she hadn't noticed, a folly hidden by overgrown roses, a pond where he'd learned to fish as a boy, the old oak where his father had taught him to climb. You loved it here, Clara observed. I did, before. He stopped at a wrought iron gate, rusted and half hidden by ivy. This is where it happened. Clara looked at the gate, then at him. Where? What happened? Catherine died in the room beyond this wall, the lying-in chamber. I was in the study, waiting. They came to tell me... His voice cracked. I haven't been through this gate in 10 years. The pain in his voice was physical. Clara wanted to reach for his hand, but didn't dare. You don't have to, she said softly. I know, but perhaps... He looked at her. Perhaps it's time. He pushed the gate. It resisted, then gave way with a groan of old hinges. Beyond lay a private garden, completely overgrown. What had once been flower beds were now wild tangles. The fountain in the center was dry and filled with dead leaves. Benches had rotted. Nature had reclaimed it all. Alexander stood frozen at the entrance, his face pale. This was her garden, he said hoarsely. She designed it, spent hours here, planning for the baby. She wanted our child to play here, surrounded by beauty. His hands clenched into fists. I couldn't bear to look at it after. Ordered everyone to stay away, let it die, like she died. Clara's chest ached. Without thinking, she stepped forward and took his hand. His fingers were cold, rigid. She wouldn't have wanted this, Clara said gently. Would she? His breath shuddered. No. She'd have been horrified. Catherine loved growing things, nurturing them. She'd hate seeing her garden like this. Then perhaps, Clara said carefully, it's time to bring it back. Not to forget her, but to honor her properly. Alexander looked at their joined hands, then at her face. Something in his expression cracked open. Would you help me? He asked, his voice raw. I don't think I can do it alone. Yes, Clara said. Yes, of course. They began the next day. Alexander dismissed the formal gardeners, insisting they do the work themselves. Clara understood why. This wasn't about efficiency. It was about healing. They worked side by side, pulling weeds, clearing debris, slowly revealing the bones of what the garden had been. Alexander was quiet at first, mechanical in his movements, but gradually, as they uncovered a stone path, then a bed of dormant rose bushes that might still live, he began to speak. She wanted white roses along this wall, he said, kneeling in the dirt, his fine clothes forgotten. And lavender here because she loved the scent. There was going to be a swing under that tree for the baby. We can plant white roses again, Clara said, and lavender. The swing could still be built. He looked at her with such naked hope it nearly broke her. Could it? Why not? Life doesn't end because someone dies. That's what you've been learning, isn't it? With your help. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Clara felt her cheeks warm. You would have found your way eventually, she said. I don't think so. I was lost, Clara. Completely lost. And then you arrived, and you brought light with you. Gentle, persistent light that refused to let me stay in the dark. He was so close. His grey-blue eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that made her dizzy. Alexander, she whispered, then stopped, shocked she'd used his Christian name. But he didn't reprimand her. Instead, he smiled. A real smile, the first she'd seen. Say it again, he said quietly. Alexander. Yes, like that. His hand reached up, almost touching her cheek, then dropped. I haven't been Alexander to anyone in 10 years, only your grace or the Duke. But you make me remember I was once just a man. Clara couldn't breathe. You are a man, a good one. Am I? I've been half dead for a decade, failing everyone who depends on me, failing her memory by refusing to live. You're living now. Because of you. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Don't you see? You didn't just open curtains and bring flowers. You opened something in me I thought was sealed forever. The air between them felt electric. Clara knew she should step back, put distance between them. This was dangerous, impossible. She was a poor companion. He was a duke, but she couldn't move. A sound made them both turn. The dowager stood at the garden gate, her expression carefully neutral. Forgive the interruption, she said, but there's a letter from London, Alexander. Parliament business. The spell broke. Alexander rose, brushing dirt from his knees, his face closing into ducal composure. Of course. Thank you, Mother. As he passed Clara, his fingers briefly touched hers, a fleeting connection that felt like a promise. After he left, the dowager approached Clara slowly. Be careful, child, she said, not unkindly. Clara's throat tightened. My lady, I know, but I have eyes. The dowager sighed. I wanted him to live again. I didn't think about the complications that might arise. Nothing will arise, Clara said firmly, even as her heart protested the lie. He's grieving. I'm helping him heal, that's all. Is it? Clara looked at the wild garden, the work they'd begun together, the intimacy that had grown between them like the roses waiting to bloom. It has to be, she whispered. The London letter changed everything. Parliament was recalling Alexander for critical votes on reform bills. He'd need to be in town for at least a month, possibly longer. The social season was beginning. His presence would be expected not just in Parliament, but at balls, dinners, all the glittering events of the ton. Come with me, he said to Clara that evening in the library. Both of you, Mother and you. The dowager looked up from her embroidery, surprised. To London, she asked. Yes, I can't. He stopped, glanced at Clara, then away. The house in Mayfair has been mostly closed, but it's large enough. Mother, you'd enjoy seeing friends again, and Miss Bennet should see London properly. Miss Bennet, back to formality, but his eyes said something else. If her ladyship wishes it, Clara said carefully. The dowager studied them both, then smiled slightly. I think London might be interesting indeed. 5 days later, they arrived in the city. The Mayfair townhouse was smaller than Ashford Hall, but no less grand. Pristine white stone, black railings, perfectly manicured small garden. The kind of house that screamed aristocratic wealth. Clara felt the difference immediately. In Derbyshire, she'd been isolated with just the Duke and his mother. Here in London, the reality of social hierarchy pressed in from all sides. Footmen who looked through her as if she didn't exist. Maids who whispered about the companion who dared walk in gardens with his grace. Delivery men bringing invitations addressed in gilt script to the Duke of Ashford for events Clara would never attend. Miss Bennet. She turned to find a young woman in an elegant day dress standing in the foyer. Beautiful, blonde, perhaps 28, with shrewd blue eyes. Yes? I'm Lady Margot Pemberton, a friend of the family. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to meet the woman who's apparently worked miracles with dear Alexander. The possessive use of his Christian name made Clara's spine stiffen. I'm simply Lady Rothwell's companion, she said evenly. Of course you are. Lady Margot's gaze swept over Clara's simple dress, her lack of jewellery, her whole obviously poor appearance. How quaint that Alexander has taken an interest in the household staff. The insult was deliberate. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "If you'll excuse me—" "Oh, don't run off. I'm not being cruel, merely honest. Alexander will need to remarry eventually, produce an heir. It's expected of him, and London is full of perfectly eligible women." She leaned in slightly. "Women of his own class. Surely you understand that." Clara understood perfectly. She understood she was being warned off, that her connection with Alexander, however innocent, was being noticed, that in London she wasn't a companion helping a man heal. She was a scandal waiting to happen. "I understand completely, Lady Pemberton," Clara said coldly. "Thank you for your concern." She walked away before the tears could start. That night, Clara lay awake in her small room at the top of the townhouse, Lady Margot's words echoing endlessly. Women of his own class, eligible, expected, true, all of it true. What had she been thinking? That a duke would fall in love with a vicar's daughter? That their afternoons in the library and mornings in the garden meant anything beyond kindness? She was a fool. A soft knock made her sit up. The dowager entered without waiting for permission, holding a candle. "I saw your light," she said, settling into the chair by the window. "Can't sleep? Just adjusting to the city." "Liar." The dowager's voice was gentle but firm. "Lady Margot found you today, didn't she?" Clara's throat tightened. "Yes, and she made certain you understand your place." "She wasn't wrong, wasn't she?" The dowager leaned forward. "Clara, listen to me. I've known Margot since she was a girl. She's beautiful, wealthy, well-connected. She's also calculating and cold. She's decided Alexander would make a perfect second husband for her. Her first died 2 years ago, leaving her very rich. But she doesn't care about my son. She cares about being a duchess. That's still more than I can offer him." "Is it? You've given him back his life. What's a title compared to that?" "Everything in this world." The dowager sighed. "Perhaps, but my son is not this world. He's a man who was dead and is now alive, and I've seen the way he looks at you." Clara's heart stuttered. "My lady—" "Don't my lady me, I have eyes. So does all of London, apparently. Which means, child, you need to be very careful. Society will not be kind if they think you're overreaching. Then I should leave, go back to Derbyshire, or find another position." "Is that what you want?" Clara closed her eyes. "No. God help me, no." "Then stay, and trust that Alexander is strong enough to make his own choices." The first ball was 3 days later. The dowager insisted Clara attend as her companion, sitting in the chaperone's corner watching the spectacle. Clara agreed reluctantly, knowing it would be torture. She borrowed a dress from one of the dowager's maids, pale blue, simple but respectable. She did her hair herself, no elaborate curls or jewels. She looked exactly what she was, a poor gentlewoman, a shadow in a room full of peacocks. The ballroom was breathtaking, crystal chandeliers dripping light, mirrors reflecting endless elegance, women in silk and satin, jewels at their throats and wrists, men in perfect evening clothes, moving with aristocratic ease, an orchestra playing Strauss, and there, in the center of it all, was Alexander. Clara's breath caught. She'd never seen him in full evening dress before. He looked like what he was, powerful, aristocratic, devastatingly handsome. Several women watched him with open interest. He was the Duke of Ashford, wealthy, titled, available. "Quite something, isn't he?" a voice said beside her. Clara turned to find an older woman, perhaps 60, with kind eyes and an amused expression. "I'm Lady Weatherby," the woman continued, "and you must be the famous Miss Bennet." "I don't know about famous," Clara said carefully. "Oh, but you are. The woman who brought the Duke of Ashford back from the dead. Everyone's talking about it." Lady Weatherby smiled. "Don't look so alarmed. Some of us are glad. Alexander was a good boy before tragedy struck. It's lovely to see him returning to society. He's very dedicated to his duties. And to you, I think." Clara's cheeks burned. "I'm just his mother's companion, yes, I know, but I also know what I see." Lady Weatherby patted her hand. "Be brave, child. Life is short, and love is rare." Before Clara could respond, the orchestra shifted into a waltz. Couples flooded the dance floor, and Clara watched, her heart breaking slowly as Lady Margot approached Alexander with a dazzling smile. He took her hand. They began to dance. Clara couldn't watch. She stood abruptly, murmuring apologies to Lady Weatherby, and fled to the terrace. The cold March air hit her face like a slap, but she welcomed it. anything to clear the image of Alexander holding Margot, smiling down at her, looking like he belonged in that glittering world, which he did. He was born to it. Clara was the interloper. "I thought I'd find you here." She spun around. Alexander stood in the terrace doorway, backlit by the ballroom's glow. "You should be inside," Clara said, trying to steady her voice. "Dancing, socializing." "I'd rather be here." "Why?" He stepped closer. "You know why." "No, I don't. I don't understand any of this." The words burst out before she could stop them. "I don't understand why you sought me out, why you talk to me, why you look at me like... She broke off, wrapping her arms around herself. "I'm nobody, Alexander. A vicar's daughter with no money, no family, no prospects. And you're a duke. This, whatever this is, it's impossible." "Is it?" "You know it is. Lady Margot made that very clear." His expression darkened. "Margot spoke to you?" "She reminded me of reality, of what I am and what you are, and she was right." Clara forced herself to meet his eyes. "You'll marry someone appropriate, someone who can stand beside you in ballrooms like this without looking ridiculous, someone who belongs. And if I don't want someone appropriate..." His voice was low, intense. Clara's heart hammered. "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't say things that make this harder." "Harder than what? Pretending I don't think about you constantly? That I don't look for you in every room? That the past month hasn't been the only time in 10 years I've actually wanted to wake up in the morning?" He closed the distance between them. "Clara, I was dead. You brought me back to life. And now you're asking me to pretend I feel nothing?" "Yes." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Because feeling something doesn't change reality. You're a duke. I'm a companion. If this continues, it will destroy both of us. You'll face scandal. I'll be branded a fortune hunter. Your family, your position, everything you've worked to rebuild will be damaged. I don't care. You should. You have responsibilities. People who depend on you, a name to uphold. You can't throw all that away for what? Say it. For me." Her voice broke. "I'm not worth that." Alexander's hands framed her face, gentle but firm, making her look at him. "You're worth everything," he said fiercely. "Clara, these past weeks with you have been more real than the entire decade before. You see me. Not the Duke, not the title, not the tragedy. Just me. And I see you, your kindness, your intelligence, your courage. Do you think I give a damn about what society expects? You should. Why? So I can be miserable in an appropriate marriage, so I can spend another 40 years existing without living." His thumb brushed away her tears. "I did that already. I won't do it again. Alexander, please, tell me you feel nothing for me," he said quietly. "Tell me the past month meant nothing. Tell me you don't care, and I'll walk away. I'll marry Margot or someone like her. I'll be the perfect duke, but first tell me the truth." Clara's breath came in sobs. She couldn't lie. Not to him, not to herself. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't tell you that." "Then don't ask me to pretend either." He kissed her. The world stopped. His lips were gentle at first, then deeper, more urgent. Clara's hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer. Years of loneliness and longing pouring into this one impossible moment. He tasted like champagne and hope, and everything she'd never let herself want. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the reality of what they'd done crashed down. "Oh God," Clara whispered. "Don't regret it." "How can I not? This changes nothing. You're still a duke. I'm still nobody. And now we've made everything so much worse. Or better, depending on your perspective." He caught her hand, pressed it to his chest where his heart hammered. "Feel that? That's what you do to me. That's what I haven't felt in 10 years, and I won't apologize for it. Your mother knows. She's not blind, Clara. None of them are." He smiled slightly. "Mother hired you hoping you'd bring me back to life. She succeeded. Now she has to accept what that means. It means scandal. Let it." "You don't understand. You're a man, a duke. You can survive scandal. I can't. If word gets out that I... She pulled away from him. "I'll be ruined. Unemployable. They'll say I seduced you for your money, that I'm a scheming fortune hunter, and maybe they'll be right. Stop." His voice was sharp. "Don't do that. Don't diminish what's between us." "What is between us?" Clara demanded, anger rising through her fear. "One kiss on a terrace, some conversations in a library. That's not enough to build a life on, Alexander. That's not enough to justify throwing everything away. Then what is enough? Tell me. Because I'm willing to give up a hell of a lot more than reputation for you. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. He stepped closer again, his eyes blazing. Clara, I love you. The words hit her like a physical blow. She actually staggered. No, she breathed. Yes, I love you. I fought it, tried to deny it, told myself it was gratitude or loneliness or anything else. But it's not, it's love. Real, terrifying, all-consuming love. His voice dropped. And I think you love me too. Clara's face crumpled. It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. No, your duty matters. Your family matters. Your position matters. You can't just watch me. Before she could respond, he pulled her back into his arms and kissed her again. Harder this time, desperate, as if he could make her believe through sheer force of will. And God help her, Clara kissed him back, because he was right. She did love him, desperately, hopelessly, impossibly, which made everything so much worse. When they finally separated, they were both shaking. Music drifted from the ballroom. Laughter, the normal sounds of a world that would never accept them. I can't stay here, Clara said, her voice raw. I can't watch you dance with Margot and smile at other women and pretend. I can't do it. Then don't. Come back to Derbyshire with me. So I can be your mistress, hidden away while you fulfill your duties? He flinched. You know that's not what I'm suggesting. Then what? Marriage? You think society will accept that? A duke marrying his mother's paid companion? She laughed bitterly. They'll destroy us both. Let them try. You're not thinking clearly. You're feeling things for the first time in years, and it's overwhelming, I understand that. But when the emotion fades, you'll regret this. You'll resent me for ruining your life. You haven't ruined anything. You've saved everything. Alexander, no. Listen to me. He took both her hands, held them tight. I've spent 10 years in hell, 10 years of darkness and emptiness, and wishing I'd died with Catherine. And then you appeared, and you brought light. You made me want to live again. You made me feel again. And yes, it's terrifying and complicated, and society will be horrified, but I don't care. For the first time in a decade, I don't care about anything except being with you. Clara's tears fell freely now. I love you too. God help me. I love you so much it hurts. But love isn't enough. Not in this world. Then we'll make it enough. How? He opened his mouth to answer, but a voice from the terrace doorway stopped him. Alexander! Lady Margot stood there, her expression cold and calculating. Everyone's wondering where you've disappeared to, and I see you've brought your little companion out for air. How thoughtful. The way she said companion made it sound like something dirty. Alexander's jaw tightened. Lady Margot, you should come inside. The Duchess of Clarence specifically asked for you. It would be rude to disappoint her. Her eyes flicked to Clara, dismissive. I'm sure Miss Bennet understands you have obligations. It was a warning and a threat all at once. Clara pulled her hands from Alexander's, stepped back. Of course, she said quietly. His Grace has duties. I should return to the Dowager. Clara, go, she whispered. Please. She walked past both of them, back into the ballroom, her vision blurred with tears. Behind her she heard Margot's light laugh, Alexander's terse response. And Clara knew with terrible certainty that loving him would be the death of her. The next morning, Clara made her decision. She couldn't do this, couldn't watch Alexander torn between duty and desire, couldn't be the reason he lost everything he'd worked to rebuild. She loved him too much to destroy him. She wrote a letter of resignation to the Dowager, brief, professional, thanking her for the opportunity, but citing family obligations in Cornwall. A lie, but necessary. Then she sent inquiries to employment agencies. Within 3 days she had a position, governess to a merchant family, far from London, far from temptation. She told no one until the night before her planned departure. The Dowager took the news with surprising calm. So you're running, she said quietly. They sat in her private sitting room, the fire crackling. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. I'm being practical. You're being a coward. The word stung. Clara's eyes burned. What would you have me do? Stay and watch him marry someone appropriate? Watch him regret choosing me? I won't be the reason he loses his standing, his family's respect, everything he's worked for. And what about what he wants? What he wants is impossible. Is it? The Dowager leaned forward. Clara, I know my son. I've watched him exist in darkness for 10 years, and I've watched him come alive again because of you. Do you really think I'd let you walk away? You should. You're his mother. You know what's best for him. I do, and what's best for him is you." The dowager's voice softened. "Society be damned. Scandal be damned. My son loves you, and you love him. That's rarer and more precious than any title. Love doesn't pay bills, doesn't stop gossip, doesn't make life perfect. No, it doesn't, but it makes life worth living." The dowager took Clara's hand. "I buried my husband 30 years ago. I've lived without love since then. And I can tell you with certainty, nothing matters as much as you think it does. Not reputation, not propriety, not what other people think. The only thing that matters is the people we love and the time we have with them." Clara's tears spilled over. "I'm afraid. So is he, so am I. Fear is part of love." The dowager squeezed her hand. "But please, child, don't let fear make you run from the best thing that's ever happened to either of you." Before Clara could respond, the door burst open. Alexander stood there, still in his evening clothes from Parliament, his cravat undone, his eyes wild. "You're leaving?" he demanded. Clara stood, her heart hammering. "Your Grace, don't... Your Grace me. You're leaving? Without even telling me? I thought it would be easier." "Easier?" He laughed harshly. "For whom?" The dowager rose quietly. "I'll give you two some privacy." After she left, silence stretched between them. Alexander looked like he'd been running, his hair disheveled, his chest heaving, like a man pushed past endurance. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice breaking. "Why would you leave?" "Because I love you," Clara said simply, "and because that love will destroy you if I stay. You don't get to make that choice for me. Someone has to think clearly. You're feeling things for the first time in years. It's overwhelming. But when the newness fades, when society turns on you, when your family suffers because you married beneath you, you'll regret it. You'll resent me. And I can't bear that. You think I'll regret loving you? I think you'll regret the consequences." He crossed the room in 3 strides, gripped her shoulders gently but firmly. "Clara, listen to me. I've lived without love. I've lived in that cold, empty place for 10 years. And I would rather face every scandal, every whispered word, every cut from society with you, than spend one more day in that darkness without you. You say that now. I'll say it forever. I'll stand in front of Parliament and say it. I'll announce it at the next ball. I'll take out an advertisement in the Times if that's what it takes." His eyes blazed with determination. "I love you, and I choose you. Not duty, not propriety, not my damned reputation. You. Alexander, please. No. You listen now. You've been telling me what I should want, what's good for me, what society expects, but you haven't asked what I actually want. What makes me happy? What makes me want to wake up every morning?" He pulled her closer. "It's you. Only you. And I'm done pretending otherwise." Clara's resolve crumbled. "The scandal. We'll pass. Scandals always do. But this won't pass. This is real. This is what I've been dead without." His voice gentled. "Don't leave me, Clara. Don't take away the only light I've found in 10 years of darkness." "I'm nobody," she whispered. "I bring you nothing. You bring me everything. Life, hope, love, the ability to feel again, to want tomorrow." His hands framed her face. "You're not nobody. You're the woman I love, the woman I want to marry, the woman I want to spend every day of my life with." "Marry!" The word came out as a gasp. "Yes, marry. Public, scandalous, society be damned marriage." He smiled slightly. "Unless you don't want that." "Don't want... Alexander, of course I want that, but then there are no buts. We love each other. We'll face whatever comes together." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Say yes. Please, Clara. Say yes." She looked into his eyes, those grey-blue eyes that had been so dead when she first saw them, now burning with life and love and fierce determination. And she knew she couldn't leave, couldn't walk away from this, couldn't deny what they both felt. "Yes," she whispered. "God help us both, yes." The announcement came 3 days later. Alexander insisted on doing it properly, despite Clara's protests. He sent notices to every major newspaper, informed the Prince Regent personally, stood before Parliament, and declared his intention to marry Miss Clara Bennet, daughter of the late Reverend Bennet, currently companion to his mother. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Half of society cut them. Invitations were rescinded. Ancient families who'd been allied with the Rothwells for generations sent curt notes severing connections. Lady Margot spread vicious rumors about Clara being a scheming fortune hunter. Anonymous letters arrived daily, calling Clara every vile name imaginable. But Alexander stood firm, immovable, unshakable. "Let them talk," he said, holding Clara as she wept over another cruel letter. "Let them whisper and gossip and judge. None of them matter. Your family. My mother is thrilled. My cousins will come around or they won't. I don't care." He tipped her chin up. "Clara, I survived 10 years in hell. I can survive angry aristocrats. But your position is secure. I'm a duke. They can't take that away. And honestly," he smiled, "being slightly scandalous might make Parliament more interesting." Despite everything, Clara laughed. They married 6 weeks later. Not in London, where society could gawk and sneer, but at Ashford Hall in the small chapel on the grounds, surrounded by people who actually mattered. The Dowager wept happy tears. Mrs. Hodges and the staff beamed. A few loyal friends attended. Lady Weatherby, who declared it the most romantic thing I've seen in 50 years, and Lord Pemberton, who'd always thought his sister Margot was a cold fish anyway. Clara wore a simple dress of ivory lace, wildflowers in her hair. No jewels, no ostentation. Just herself, exactly as Alexander loved her. As she walked down the aisle, she saw him waiting. His face transformed when he saw her. Joy and love and wonder all mixed together. The Duke of Ashford, powerful and feared, looking at his bride like she was the only woman in the world, because to him she was. The ceremony was brief, traditional vows given with voices that shook with emotion. When the vicar pronounced them man and wife, Alexander kissed her like a man finding water in the desert. Deep, desperate, grateful. "My Duchess," he murmured against her lips. "You're Clara," she corrected. "Always that first." The wedding breakfast was intimate and joyful. No stiff formality, no social maneuvering. Just good food, better wine, and people who genuinely cared, celebrating love they'd all witnessed bloom from impossible circumstances. Lady Weatherby raised a toast. "To the Duke and Duchess of Ashford, may they scandalize society for decades to come." Everyone laughed and drank. Later, as evening fell, Alexander led Clara outside to the garden they'd restored together. White roses climbed the walls now. Lavender scented the air. The fountain burbled cheerfully. Life had returned where death once reigned. "Catherine would have liked you," Alexander said quietly, his arm around Clara's waist. "She'd have approved of this, of us." Clara leaned into him. "You think so?" "I know so. She wanted me to be happy, to live fully, and I am now, because of you." He turned her to face him. "Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to stay. For fighting for us when I was too afraid to fight for myself. For bringing me back to life. You brought yourself back. I just held the door open. No, you were the light in the darkness. You were the reason I wanted to step through that door." He kissed her softly. "I love you, Clara Rothwell, Duchess of Ashford, my wife, my everything. I love you too," she whispered. "My Alexander, not your grace, not my lord, just Alexander, the man beneath the title, the man who'd been lost and was now found." They stood together in the garden as stars emerged overhead, two people who'd found each other against all odds. Society would talk. Scandals would swirl. None of it mattered. They had each other, and that was enough. 2 years later, spring came again to Ashford Hall. Clara stood in the same garden, one hand on her swollen belly, watching her husband play with their daughter. Isabella Catherine Rothwell, 15 months old, toddled after her father as he pretended to chase butterflies. Her laughter rang out, pure and joyful. Alexander caught her up in his arms, spinning her until she squealed with delight. "Careful," Clara called. "Don't make her dizzy." "She likes it," Alexander protested, but he slowed his spinning, settling the toddler against his chest. "Don't you, little one?" Isabella grabbed his nose, giggling. Clara's heart swelled. This was her life now. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just existing, but truly living. Society had eventually accepted them. Impossible not to, when the transformation in the Duke of Ashford was so obvious. He attended Parliament with renewed vigour, took interest in his estates again. became known for his progressive views on labor reform, much to the shock of his peers. The Duke of Ice had melted, and in his place stood a man fully alive. And Clara, the fortune hunter, the scheming companion, had proven herself through simple consistency. She was kind to the staff, intelligent in her support of her husband's work, generous with the downtrodden. She won people over one by one, not through grand gestures, but through quiet, persistent decency. Some still snubbed them. Lady Margot had married a viscount, and still spread occasional rumours, but most of society had moved on to newer scandals, and the Rothwells didn't care either way. Alexander joined Clara on the bench, Isabella now drowsy against his shoulder. "She's nearly asleep," he murmured. "Good. She kept me up half the night." Clara smiled, rubbing her belly. "This one's already more active than she was. Impatient, like his father." "You think it's a boy?" "I know it is, I can feel it." He grinned at her skeptical look. "Call it instinct, or wishful thinking. You want a son. I want healthy. Boy or girl doesn't matter." His free hand covered hers on her belly. "I want you both safe, that's all." The memory of Catherine hung in the air for a moment, the fear that history might repeat. But Clara had excellent doctors. Alexander was nothing like the distant husband he'd been before, and they were facing this together. "We'll be fine," she said firmly. "All three of us. Promise?" "Promise." That evening, after Isabella was settled in the nursery, they walked through the house together. Not the cold mausoleum Clara had first entered 2 years ago, but a home, warm, lived in, full of laughter and light. Fires burned in hearths, windows stood open to spring air, flowers brightened every room. They ended in the library, their library, where so much had begun. "Do you ever regret it?" Alexander asked, pulling her into his arms. "The scandal, the gossip, giving up the anonymity you had before?" Clara looked around the room where she'd first left him flowers, where they'd first really talked, where he'd first smiled at her. "Not for a second," she said honestly. "This, us, it's everything I never knew I wanted, everything I didn't think possible." "Same." He kissed her temple. "You saved me, Clara." "No, we saved each other." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You were lost. I was invisible. Now we're both found, both seen, both alive. Together. Always together." As night fell over Ashford Hall, the Duke and Duchess stood entwined in the library, surrounded by thousands of books and millions of words. But they needed none of them. Everything worth saying was in the way he held her, in the way she leaned into his strength, in the life they'd built from broken pieces. The Duke had awakened from his 10-year sleep, and in doing so, he'd awakened the woman who'd been sleepwalking through her own existence. They were both, finally, fully, gloriously alive, and they would be together for all the years to come.